Hi everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. Today we are diving into something that can make a real difference in your .NET 8 Blazor applications, which is custom cookie authentication in a Blazor web app with interactive WebAssembly. Now think about this. Let's say you are building a Blazor application where users need to stay logged in across sessions. But you want a lightweight solution that does not depend on a heavyweight identity system. That is where custom cookie authentication comes in. I have already shown you how to set up this for an interactive server app, but today we are taking it a step further with WebAssembly. So by the end of this video, you will know exactly how you can implement this feature in your own Blazor Interactive WebAssembly app, giving your users a seamless, secure experience that works even in a WebAssembly setup. So let's hop into our Visual Studio. As you can see, I've launched mine, and make sure you do same. We're going to create project, and in that we're going to create a Blazor web app with a new template and select Interactive WebAssembly. Now we have this package or this project created, as you can see from the screen. Now when you go to solution, you can see we have two projects. We have the server and the WebAssembly. This is a client. The client here gets downloaded into the browser and it's going to run in the browser. But the server, as you know, is going to create a page which will be sent to the client to view it. All the processing is going to happen on the server. But for the client, everything is going to be downloaded into the browser. And I believe you know this. If you don't know, now you know. Alright, so with this, we need to create the cookie authentication. It actually must happen in the server. You know, authentication can never be on the client because this is the most important thing to protect your application, and it should not have anything related to the browser. Everything should be processed in the server and now sent as a copy to the client. And so this should happen only in the server. So in the server, we're going to customize, we're going to install packages, create our services, and do all the magic that we need to do. And for the client, in order for the client to coordinate and also cooperate, we need to create authentication state as what we have been doing in the Blazor WebAssembly. And with this is slightly different from what we have been doing in the Blazor WebAssembly, but it actually has the same concept. So you're going to use that, and you make sure we integrate it in the client to sync with the server, and that is all. So let's get into it. First of all, we're going to install our packages in the server. So let's do that. So these are the packages that we need: Identity UI, Entity Framework Core Identity. Then we have the EF core itself, SQLite for database. You can use SQL Server. Then we have tools for enable migration. The next thing that we're going to do here is to create a constant which is going to handle the cookie name and also the scheme. Now, since you're going to be using this also in the client, I prefer we put this in the client, or you can create a C# library as attached to this as shared, and you can share it to the client and also to the server. Be versatile, so you can do any of what I just made mention of. But with this, we're going to use the client. So let's create a folder and I'll put everything in here. So after that, we have our scheme and also a cookie name created. Now we have this constant, so it should be a static. We need to also create our claims. That is what you're going to be using to create our server auth state and also our client auth state. So let's do that. Once you have this folder open, we can go ahead and undo it. So these are the current claims that you're going to have in our system. So we have it here. We can move this to a different file. So now that we have this, let's go to our program.cs file and add our service. That is a cookie and also identity manager service. So this service here takes in AppDB context. That means we need to create that. So this is what we need to do in order to register the cookie service. We specify our cookie name, our login path, and make sure that it is HTTP only so that nobody can access it. And also we set an expiration time that is for a day, and also we enable sliding expiration as true. So as we're done with that, there's one thing that we need to add, that is our cascading parameter. Now cascading or state here enables us to skip using cascading authentication states in the route. So let's do that as well before we forget that. So now that we are done, we need to also go in and add our DB context. So once we have this, we have our packages installed already. So let's add a DB context on top. So now that we are done with this, we can go in there, rebuild the project, and in case it works, we need to add migration. But before we build it, let's add the middleware pipeline for authentication and authorization. So let's go in there and apply migration. So you create a file and then we update the file. Alright, so we have a database updated, and that's a migration, sorry. And when you check the solution, you can see that you have the database attached here. That's an SQLite database attached. Alright, so let's go in there and create our server or state provider. We're going to do that in the server. So this is what we are doing here. When we start from scratch, from the first one, here we are storing the component state for preserving data across render sessions. So that's the reason why we're using this component state. We want to store the state across sessions, that is from the server here to the client. Now when we talk about this, the next line here is what we're going to do is it's going to hold the current authentication state as a task. So whether the user is authenticated or not, this is responsible for holding that. The next thing is you're going to subscribe for persistent component state. When we do this, it allows automatic cleanup when the component is disposed. So that is the reason why we also subscribe. We subscribe so that it can be disposed as soon as there's no subscription anymore and the state is being disposed. And also we create a constructor so we can initialize this component state. So as you can see from here, we pass on the component state. And after that, we set up a subscription for the component state. So you can see we are subscribing. That's the reason why we are using register on persistent. So we subscribe to the state. And the next one here is we want to register an event handler to get executed as soon as the state changes. So when the state changes, we want to call this so we can rerun or make some action. So you can see we're going to register an event handler here. Now this is going to update the authentication state as soon as it changes. And when we come here, so here we make it an asynchronous so we can wait for authentication state to check whether the user is authenticated or not. In case user is authenticated, we want to get the claims and now populate the claims into the module that we created as custom claim. After that, we want to persist, so we want to keep it so it can be transported to the other state that is in the client session. Remember that this is happening in the server. So in the client, we want to send this in there. We want to make it persist. That's the reason why we use this persist as JSON to keep it. And when visualizing it, since we are using the name of, it's going to visualize that. And now we're going to have it in the form of this property that we specified. Bear in mind that it's going to be in a JSON format. So as soon as you visualize it, you're going to have the .NET object as a custom claim. And we have an event handler that's going to update the local authentication state when it changes. And then finally, we are disposing the subscription and also register the event handler to prevent memory leaks and so forth. So that's what we need to do here. After we are done with this, we need to go in there and register this custom auth state to our authentication state in the program.cs file. So let's do that as well. Now that we are done with registering our custom server authentication state provider, let's go to the route and protect it. So after we are done with this, let's go ahead and create our login, our logout, and our register components. So that is going to be our logout. We're going to sign out using the context from this HTTP context, which is having this cascading parameter set on top. Then that we're going to navigate to the login component. So that means as soon as we create a component, we should have this as a route. And now the route here should sync or should match exactly what we did in our program.cs file when we configure the add cookie for our login path. So let's do that. So before we can create our login, we need to create our models first, and that is what I've prepared something already for our models. So let's see how we can do that. This should happen in the server. So in here we can create a class. So in here I want to create a base model first. Now this base model contains the email and password. After that I can create my login straight away. And now with the login, I'm going to have my remember me also included. And then for the register, I can just go in and inherit from the base model that we have created. So from here, I can just inherit from this so I can get and add the extra properties that I need, such as the confirm password. So within that, I can just go in and extract all these into various components. So move to File. Now let's go and continue with our login component. So we have it in here. And we still need the HTTP context, so we're going to go here and grab this. Aside from that, we also need a return parameter. So that's a return variable in here, so we can have access to the return URL from the query. Now, when the button is clicked to log in, what do you want to do? That is what you're going to do next. So before that, we need to include our user manager over here. So if user here is now, you can just return the message to the user. But for this, we want to return now. User is not found, so we're not going to do anything. Now, in case user is found, what are you going to do? We want to check if the password they do match the user current password and what we have in the database. So in case the password they do match, then we want to get our claims, and after we have our claims, we want to create identity, and then we want to sign in using this HTTP context that we have. We did that in the previous video using the interactive server, so it is the same approach. So I have the claims in here. Now with the claims, we have our email name and our name ID, and that's exactly this match what we have exactly in the custom claims. Email, username, and ID, and you should have the same thing in here. After we are done with that, you can create identity and also principal and also auth state properties, and that is so we can specify the remember me to extend the lifespan of the cookie in case you have that. In case it is set to true, yes, by the user. So we need to include an authentication properties over here, and as you can see, with this our claim that we have, we specify the scheme. We create a principal and passing this identity as a claim that we have in here. Aside from that, we specify auth state properties, and in here we're going to say is it persistent. So here, if the user clicks on yes, remember me, they're going to set it to yes, which is going to increase the lifespan of the cookie which will be generated. Aside from that, the next thing I'm going to do here is we're going to sign in, and after signing in, we want to navigate to the URL that we have specified. So under signing in, it takes in the identity, that's the principal, and also the auth properties. That is where is persistent actually is set here. Then we have that. We need to inject our nav manager, so we can quickly go to our logout. We have it in here. We can grab this, go to our login, and I'll paste it here, and I think this issue is going to be solved. And that is all. So let's go and create our logout. That's a register component as well. Now before we do that, I forgot that we did not create a form. Yes, so we need to create a simple form to handle this login. So login, we takes in the user ID, so that's the user email, the password, and also remember me. And I have a very simple form here where it's going to handle that with a button, and we need to specify the method form name, which has been specified on top of the parameter in here. So login form, it should match with this form name as login form. So from there, we have a method of post, and there is a model. When valid submit, this is what's going to be executed, and now there's a method that we have defined already. Aside from that, we have a login model, and that's an instance of this login model. So here we're going to say that is equal to new, and now this login model has these properties in there. Okay. Now we should use the form, that's the namespace, to handle this form. Okay, so we are good. Now in a register 2, we're going to create a simple form which takes in the user email, the password, and a confirmed password. Aside from that, we can quickly have our simple. First of all, let's have our routes authentication. Then that is going to be a simple edit form. So we need to create our code section, and in our code section, all that you're going to do here is you specify the supplier parameter from form and give it a form name. So from that, if a button is clicked, you want to call this user manager, meaning that we need to use this user manager again. You can grab it from the login and go on top, and I'll paste it there. So we have a user manager also here. Now make sure you include a namespace. as well. And then when you come here, we need our navigation manager. So you can actually put this in the import file so that you can skip duplicating this all over. This for just a learning sake, so you can paste in there and now move on. So we have everything set. Now in case we create it, so you can see this is going to return in case it succeeds. That is when a user is created, and we want to navigate to login only when user is created. Then that is all. Quite simple. So in our home component, let's go and protect it by applying this authorize attribute on top. So when you are logged in, you get to the home, you want to make sure that you authorize, else it will move you to the login component. So in case you are logged in, we want to also make sure we get your claim. So let's get maybe the email claims here, and this should come from authorization, and also we should have the claims as well. And then we need our component for this authorize, that is a ASP.NET Core component authorization. We need that for this authorize attribute as well. This, so we have it here, so we can remove that. And that is the Microsoft.ASP.NET Core authorization. Yes, and we have it in there. So here we want to grab the email. If you're authenticated, say authenticated, pass in the email. If you are not, then that's what you're gonna see. So we can grab same, then we go to the weather forecast, and in here maybe we can paste it. Yeah, and now once you have it, we want to make sure that here we want to get the ID. So we say this is your ID. Okay, so you want to get a claim. So we're doing that to test whether the claim that we specified in our login section, we can retrieve them in the component, and our server component, our custom server auth state has able to retrieve them and utilize them in the authentication task. So we have them. Let's see. Now this is going to work beautifully on the server, but when it gets to the client, there's going to be an issue because we need to add authentication. So we need to create an auth state provider in the client. So that's going to be the last part for this. Let's go quickly and do that in there. But before we do that, when you go to the nav menu, I think we need to add this login and register links. I believe you know that. So go in there and customize that nav menu. You can find that from the layout nav menu, and you can find it from here. So the next line, we want to put this up here. So in case you're authorized, then kindly see this. In case you are not, then kindly also see this. So if you're authorized, then go to logout. In case you are not, then give me login and I register. This is quite a simple thing. So in our client project, let's create the client auth state provider. It seems like this package, we need to install this package. So let's get that installed. After this has been installed, we need to implement this abstract. So when you have a look here, this is what we're doing. You can see we are creating an authentication state provider, and now here we're inheriting from this default auth state provider as what we did or we have been doing in the Blazor WebAssembly standalone, in that you create authentication state which will handle the user authentication state, whether the user is registered, the task, claims, identities, and etc. Aside from that, we're going to create this constructor. So as soon as this is called, we want to pass in this persistent component state. This is coming straight away from the server, and in the server we set these claims and we persist adjacent, so we can retrieve them here, and that is exactly what we are doing. So we take it from here, and in case it is not null, we want to extract what we set. After extracting it, we want to create an identity and also pass on this to the claims principal as an identity claim that we have. Bear in mind that we need to also provide the scheme, and in case it isn't, because we are creating new, it means that here user is not authenticated, and now we want to call the authentication state and now pass in this principal. At the end of the day, you can see from here, this is authentication state that holds the current user authentication. So we're going to assign it to this as a task from result. So here, authentication state could be authenticated, or that the user in here could be authenticated or not. And after that, you want to, as soon as you click on get authentication state, you want to call this. Anytime that you navigate your component, this method is going to get called. And as soon as it gets called, this constructor also be called earlier, and we're going to have access to whether the user is authenticated or not. So this is going to work in the client to support the server. Okay, now let's see. Once you're done with this, you need to go in and register this in the program.cs file, and also add two services, that is a cascading auth state and also authorization core. Let's do that. So now that we are done, we can create a component in here. So let's use this component, that is a pages counter, and now we can say this is client component. And in that, let's go and specify this in there. What we did, let's use this authorize view, and also we need to use this authorize. So if you're not authorized, you cannot access this. Okay, let's also get a claim type. Now we can also grab the username here. All right, let's go ahead and run this project. All right, so we have an error here. Let's see. Let's find out and see what the error is. So in our weather page, let's go and check it out. Let's rebuild this project first. So yeah, we have an issue. Let's see, claim type does not exist. So this type should come from claim types. We don't have an ID, that is name identifier. So you can see that as soon as we logged in, we have we run the application, we are in the login page, and you can see we have a return URL. If you can see it clearly, we have a return URL on top in here. Now let's go and try to log in. We don't have an account, so let's create it. And you can see here it is navigating. Since we are new, we don't have an account, we are not logged in, we have this login and register. So let's do that. As soon as it registers successfully, it should navigate to the login component. So let's wait and see. Yeah, we are in. Let's go and log in. Now you can see we have an email over here, so you're authenticated. Now if I go to counter, okay, counter is not there, so we can say this is client, and you're navigating to the client component in the WebAssembly, which is going to be loaded into the browser. And yes, of course, we have the username over here. Now you can see we have logout change, so as soon as I click on logout, you can see it has also changed. Let's try to log in again and check it out. So pass in this login, and now this should also change. When we go to inspect element, and I'll check for application, now straightforward, go to cookie, and we have a scheme as Netcode-Hub, and that is a cookie. So from here, the expiring date and etc. But the expiring date we did not include when logging in. We did not include remember me, so it is 1 day. But in case we do that, then it's going to extend the lifespan of that cookie. Great. So we have this. Now as soon as you log in again, you can go in and I refresh. See, if I refresh this, I am still logged in. So that is it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this guide helpful. Integrating custom cookie authentication can open up a lot of options for your Blazor Interactive Web App application, keeping them secured and user-friendly. So do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more Blazor.net content here on Netcode-Hub. Let me know in the comments if you have any question or want to see more on authentication. Let me know. Catch you in the next time. Till then, take care.